All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today for the IRL Ventures Travel Video Creators podcast. We are joined today with someone really awesome that I can't wait to introduce to all of you. So, Junaid is a home studio architect and podcaster for the show Hacks and Hobbies and partners with GoBox Studio, the portable studio in a suitcase. I saw this in real life and it was really, really cool. And then I said, okay, you need to be on my podcast because this is going to be super important for travel video creators. And it's literally an all-in-one solution. It's really cool. I've seen him do live podcasts in person with this, and it's something to behold. And he's also a master networker, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. He knows everybody, and that's why I know him. You can follow him on any platforms at Super Junaid. And let's welcome Junaid. Hello.
Hey Ed, thanks so much for having me here. Super excited.
Thanks. And so we'll just start a little bit with an introduction of how we got to meet. So you're actually the second guest on the podcast that I met at Podfest, which is an awesome podcasting convention. Happens, I think, every January.
Every January, yep.
Yeah, in Orlando, Florida. So in the home of Mickey Mouse. So, I met you there, and I don't remember exactly how I met you. I think I saw you using your Go box, and I had to talk to you about it because it was really cool. And then, we started talking and became friends over the course of the convention. And then you very kindly agreed to be on my podcast, which I'm super excited about. Because if you don't know, Junaid, also, he makes podcast studios for people. If you follow him on Instagram, you can see him building podcast studios from scratch in people's houses and businesses. And they are awesome. They are honestly, I would invite you if you want to show your different angles. That was really cool.
Just the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Over here, I've got a little side angle here so you can actually see that this is not a fake space. People are like, oh my God, you have such a beautiful virtual background. Or your background looks good. I'm like, yes, it looks good because I've got all the elements that go into it to make sure that this looks amazing, right? So that's what I do.
Yeah. So, he's a pro. But anyway, by the way, how many times have you been to Podfest? Just out of curiosity.
I've been to Podfest in person 4 times, and I did the virtual one during the pandemic or in 2021.
Awesome.
With the virtual one, yeah.
Yeah, because this past January, this year was my first time, and it really jump-started me into podcasting, and it's, just the networking alone is super valuable.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's talk a little bit about your origin story. I saw you had some of the superheroes up on your wall in one of those shots. So what's your origin story? How did you get involved with video production, and how did that lead to it becoming part of your career?
Absolutely. So I was handed a camera when I was 11 years old, and it was a film camera. My uncle was like, hey, for $1, you can have this camera. And now the story behind it is during Ramadan or after Ramadan, all the kids are given gifts and whatnot. And my uncle's like, hey, I'm going to, give these kids a gift, even though it's not worth, a $1, but, it'll be a cool exchange for them to acquire this camera. So along, myself included and my cousins and we all got these cameras, but I took it and I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever because I was able to now capture memories and whatnot. Now, being 11 years old and holding a camera, you don't know a whole lot about it. But as you age and as you grow into understanding the technology behind cameras, and back then these were film cameras, so you actually had to buy these little films to put in there and make sure you're not exposing it to light, all those fun things. And it was a lot of fun experience going through that journey. Now fast forward, as I moved to the US, I am introduced to more photography gear, and being somebody who's a tech enthusiast, talking about technology was something that I love to do. So being behind camera, involved with technology, got to meet this gentleman who did videos for a living. He would shoot videos for weddings and whatnot. So I got made friends with him because I was working at a computer store at the time, assembling computers again, technology infused. And fast forward to 2013, my wife gets me a DSLR camera for our wedding anniversary. And I was like, okay, this is the real deal. Now, before that, I've had many, many different cameras, from film cameras to reels to digital, SD cards and built-in memory. All of these things, the evolution of it, you can see. And when I was handed this camera, you have the SD card and full DSLR capability, replacing the lens and whatnot. I was like, I need to understand how to actually use these things properly. So I went on a learning journey of 15 different courses, learning anywhere from foundations of photography, foundation of filmmaking, how to interview, how to set up an interview, Hollywood camera work, like how to set up the different shots, like where should the person be placed. And what's cool is that a lot of the examples they shared in those courses were displayed in television and displayed in movies. And so after taking that course, every single show that I would watch, I was like, okay, that they're using that shot, they're using that shot. So I started understanding what's actually happening, because if you look at Hollywood, they have a certain standard of how they want the story go and how they want to keep the attention of the person.
It's like
and
visual language.
Visual language, right? And that's why you have the different camera angles. It's pulling people into that shot. I'm like, okay, what's going on over here? It's got superheroes. So again, I was intrigued by all of that. And when the pandemic hit, I had already been doing short films, documentaries, commercials for other people. And when we were stuck at home, I was like, well, I have all this gear. Why don't I just set up my own stage in my own studio space?
Yeah.
And as I started doing that, people were like, oh my God, we're all using Zoom. Why is your video so clean? What's going on? So I started teaching people and built a course around it. I built consultation around it, flying out to people and building their studios. I wrote a book called 7 Stages of Home Studio Evolution. So all of that because I was so passionate about technology. I was so passionate about camera gear and film gear and lighting. And so that's what led me into, calling myself the home studio architect.
That's awesome. And just out of curiosity, that course, was it like a Skillshare type thing? Was it online? Was it in person?
Yeah, it was all online. It was all on lynda.com. There was the Hollywood course was a specific one. I can't remember where I found it, but all of these different courses were on Lynda. There's even a ton of courses on YouTube, even like Rocket Media School is another one you can watch. So again, all they're teaching is the basics and fundamentals of cameras and photography.
Right.
And if you understand this, like when I was taking this, I was like, wait, I can apply those same principles on the old point and shoot cameras that I had. So I can take better photos, right? Because all of those, the trifecta of the focal length, the aperture, and the size of the sensor or the light sensitivity, like that can be applied to literally anything. And being able to do that on our phones now, it's like mind blowing what you can do.
And I'm always an advocate for, being self-taught. I taught myself everything about video. I went to school for Chinese. That was my major. So, and my minor was human rights. So, very not, camera focused at all. But YouTube University, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
And like, just to encourage people too, like you only need your phone to get started. That's it.
Absolutely.
Your phone has YouTube on it where you learn things for free, and then you can, take amazing quality video and audio. I mean, we're old enough, or at least I am, I should say, that I remember when the video quality on phones was terrible.
Yes.
And the audio quality, and it was like, the video ran through a washing machine and like, static, and but it's amazing today. Like to see the evolution, like some people that are watching this, they might not be old enough to remember back when it was that bad. But yeah, it's a world of a difference.
It's come a long way for sure. And talking about phones, right? I started my podcast recording that audio podcast on my smartphone in my car. Like I wanted to get the reps in. So I was like, hey, how can I get fast track? And back then we had an app called Anchor, and you could record directly into it.
Yeah.
So my entire first season of my podcast was recorded on that app in a car.
That got acquired by Spotify, right?
Yes, Anchor was bought by Spotify, so now it's creators, Spotify for creators. But again, that was just amazing of being able to do it, because people don't think about it, right? The hardest thing is to get started.
Yep.
And when you don't get started and you just keep thinking about it, guess what? It's going to get harder and harder for you.
Yeah.
So just taking small steps and just going and doing the thing is the most important thing to do.
Yeah, start before you're ready. That's what they say on all the YouTube gurus.
Yes.
And yeah, I agree, because I don't feel like I'm ready to be doing the podcast, but I'm doing it because I want to, and I want to get better. And that's honestly like the thing is with, doing it in the car with your phone. People nowadays really appreciate authenticity. I think we're like talking about visual language. We've been for generations now, multiple generations, programmed by that visual language of the media, films, television. And when we feel like, and that's why YouTube is so powerful and so popular, it's the number one streaming platform on televisions.
Yeah.
It's more than Netflix, and, and it's free. There's no, you could pay YouTube Premium, get no commercials, but it's free,
Yeah.
And it's because it's other people. Like we've never had this really before in history as humans, like the ability to kind of like open up this portal and like see other, like we're talking right now over a long distance, and other people can watch us talk and interact with us. And when you think about it, it's pretty amazing. And we're lucky to be where we are right now in time for content creation, because in the past you had to hustle like crazy.
Yeah.
You had to audition, you had to go to school, and
there's no more middlemen, right? There's no more middlemen or gatekeepers. And the reason they had the gatekeepers because they wanted to keep the standard really, really high.
Right.
And so film, right, the Hollywood had to keep that standard really high. So they had, films, you have to go through film school, you have to go through acting school and all of that stuff. And that set the standard. So what's happening is that with the launch of YouTube 20 years ago in 2005 on Valentine's Day as a dating site.
Yeah.
Right. It totally changed the world, because now anybody and everybody has access to the audience that they were talking about. There's actually a really cool talk on YouTube. Is this the end of Hollywood? Is the title of it. And this gentleman is talking about the entire history of what happened and why it happened and where we're going. Like if you look at the technology that we have on our hands, the DJI Osmo, you've got
I love it.
the other, all these different things, the wireless microphones, they're the standard now. And the technology company have been able to bring that standard to the YouTube world. And even in people creating content on YouTube, they're like, hey, I learned everything that Hollywood's doing. Now I can bring it to my own audience.
Yeah. And it's, excuse me, honestly, it's just like amazing. Like as someone also who grew up playing around with the family camcorder, where we had like the little tapes that you had to put in.
The little tiny tapes.
Yeah. And I didn't do editing. I edited like by doing things in order, and that's like, it's, but anyway, it's grown a lot. And our point is basically, if you want to do it, because you never know, who's out there that's wanting to listen to you and watch you and, sharing your story. But it's possible. Like we're saying, these studios spend millions of dollars sometimes on these projects that lose money.
Yes.
And you can make something for free, and maybe it'll make you money, maybe not, but at least if you enjoy doing it, it's something to do. And there's a possibility that it could lead to a career. So so that's awesome that you're able to kind of like take that passion into a career. And I'm noticing another trend too with a lot of the people that I'm interviewing is the pandemic is kind of a jumping off
Mm-hmm.
point for a lot of people.
Yes.
So, that's when I started streaming, was during the pandemic. I was doing YouTube since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was another moment that kind of made people want to connect
Yeah.
because we were so disconnected, but also like get into this. We have a different world now, than we had before, and it's created a lot of creators. I think that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit more about the your production studio in a carry on, because I know everyone wants to hear about that. I'm excited to learn more about it because I saw it at Podfest. It was awesome, and I just think it's such a and guys, it's a carry on suitcase. Like it's tiny, but it has like professional lights, mic, everything. So okay, I just want to talk. How did you get involved with that? How did that idea come about?
Absolutely.
And just tell me all about it.
So, because I had been helping people set up their studios, set up their lightings, and walking around teaching them the right way to set up their spaces, I started garnering attention from different people. I had a ton of guests on my show, so they saw my video quality, and now they become referrals for me. So there's a gentleman by the name of Ken Okazaki, based out of Japan. He built this unit, and he specially created it for one of his clients. And his client was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. A lot of people love it. I think you need to go into business with it." So he reached out in our Ecamm fam community. Is like, "Hey, I've built this device, but I need somebody who's in the US that can help me support and assemble and ship it to people." And then one of the friends of mine's that I connected through podcasting was like, "Hey, you need to talk to Junaid." So I got in touch with Ken. We had a conversation. This is back in 2021. And we got in a conversation and we were like, "Oh my God, this is so cool." And, we're just talking back and forth. And finally, in September of 2022, he calls me up. He's like, "Junaid, I'm coming to the US. We're going to launch the GoBox studio. Can you come to San Diego?" I was like, "Absolutely. Let's do this." We had all these t-shirts made. We had all these, marketing material done. And we were there, and it was just amazing. We sold a few units at that first event. And it's just been amazing to see the people embrace this thing, because in 2022 people were still creating content. They're still flying everywhere, and studio having access to good studio was again a big thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be continuing, right? Because how many billions of people are using smartphones already?
Mm-hmm.
They know how to create video, but they want to do a higher quality video. This is where this thing fits in the budget.
So, going back a little bit, so what was that event was it like a convention that you
It was a
attended?
convention. It was called Traffic and Conversion in 2022.
Cool. So like traffic and conversion of like customers, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, just going back to, um, you know, like thinking about what's in the actual studio itself, like how did you all decide what was going to be included there?
Mm-hmm.
What's the best, form factors and price, factor, because you want it to be good, but also somewhat affordable and, portable and all that stuff. So how did you all like figure out how to get that, all in the box?
100%. So the number one thing that we wanted to focus on was portability, being able to take it on the plane with you wherever you're going, because people are traveling for conventions, they're traveling for different events, and they still have these meetings and video recordings that they need to do, and they want to be able to carry it with them. So we wanted to make sure that it was portable, because yes, during the pandemic, a lot of companies came out with portable, quote unquote portable, studio devices, which had high-end cameras, full-on monitors, cost, weigh anywhere from 50 to 100 pounds, that had to be delivered physically, and then so there's a lot of different products, but we were like, we were just focusing on this small market of entrepreneurs, small market of people who are creating webinars, so that they can create a professional quality production from this unit. So the things that we included in it was a Stream Deck, because with Stream Deck you can control what the audience sees, what you're recording, because then you can bring up lower thirds, you can bring up some side panels, you can bring up name tags and all of these things, as well as share your screen or share your iPad screen, let's say. So we wanted to make sure that it had all of those features. So first of all, we want to make sure that you've got a really high-end camera. Now, I love to show off this box. Let's see if I have it back here.
Yeah.
All right, so I love to show off this box. And then this box has this little yellow square down here versus this entire box.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the relative size of a webcam sensor versus a full-on full frame or a crop sensor camera. Right, so the sensor size is large. So we wanted to make sure that we have a sensor size that's large in here. It has a good fast lens. It can even work in low light. So we focus on those two things, and there is a perfect product available by Canon and Sony. Even now, the Canon M200 we had back then, and now we have the ZV-10 camera with the crop sensor and a really nice Sigma fast lens. So you want to make sure those things fit in there, and then how to power these things through the system. So again, bringing all of those things together, you have a high-end camera that can do 4K video. You've got wireless microphones so that you can either hold it in your hand or attach it to yourself as a lavalier mic, and be able to have some lights, because it's designed so you're standing in front of the camera kind of like this, and then you've got lights shining right on you through that Kovac Studio. And then if you position yourself properly in the room, meaning that you're sitting in front of a window, then you have the perfect lighting and filling in all the shadows as well.
That's awesome. So the other thing too is, like, for other people that want to get into kind of that technical and physical product aspect of, providing studio services and those kinds of things, like, how would you recommend that they get started in that? Because it's a little bit different than what I'm sure a lot of the viewers are doing, but I'm sure there's some people out there that have an idea and they think, okay, how do I bring this to market? How do I, develop this and find the right people and find the funding, all that sort of stuff. So it's like, if you can give any insight on that to other people that want to bring physical products to the market to help content creation, that'd be awesome.
100%. So we bootstrapped this product because, we saw the need, we saw the ask from the audience. So, but what you want to do is, number one, get the book Why by what's his name, Tom Eisenman. He's a Harvard business professor. He wrote the book called Why Startups Fail. So get that book when you can.
Okay.
Number two is, you want to talk to as many people in your target audience as possible and understand what their needs are. Now, if you remember, we all know Pat Flynn. We love him. We love and listen to him, and he's been doing podcasting for so many years. He created a product called the SwitchPod. And now SwitchPod, he worked closely with Caleb, which he's a videographer, and he's like, what is the problem that we're facing when we're creating the content with these Gorilla Pods? Like, Gorilla Pods are great. Yeah. A ton of people are using it. Massive handle to hold, and takes a while for it to set it. And they were able to solve that problem with this SwitchPod. Now, what they did is they spent the time to create the device, to talk to a ton of people, understand what their needs are and what the problems they're facing, to be able to create the product. But then they also marketed the damn thing for a whole year before launching the Kickstarter project. And within the first 11 hours, they were able to raise $130,000 in the first 13 hours. And that basically met their goal. And then they were able to go much further on how much they raised funds for that product. But again, you want to ask the audience who's going to be using your product before you even go diving into actually creating it. Prototype
Right.
it with cardboard, prototype it with paper, prototype it in such a way that's going to get you in front of the audience and be like, oh, they can actually touch it and feel it. And what's cool, the time that we're living right now, we have access to 3D printers. We have access
Yeah.
to 3D software that you can build and create
CAD.
these things, CAD, right? All of these things are available to us. And if you are really interested in bringing something to the market, that's where you want to go. And just so you know why I know so much is because I've backed over 280 Kickstarter campaigns myself.
Wow. So, so also, couldn't hurt to talk to Junaid himself as well for
Absolutely.
some advice. I'll tell you, he knows a lot, and he's a super nice guy. So I highly recommend that.
Thanks.
But yeah, so this Go Box, is it currently on the market, or is it like in pre-production? Can people get it? When
So
can they get it?
it is in it is so we had a first batch run of about 100 units that we have about 3 or 2 of these left. If anybody wants to access it, but we are doing a run of 500 units
Nice.
come June, and then we're going to be actually running a Kickstarter campaign around it, so you can get in on the ground floor of the product, and bring in your own gear to it.
Awesome. So you can even customize it based on your needs.
Based on what you want. Yeah, if you want 2 cameras, you want 3 cameras in it, you can do all sorts of fun things with it.
That's awesome. Is there like a website where people can go to?
Absolutely. Head on over to goboxstudio.com.
Awesome.
You can learn all about it.
So, now getting into we talked a little bit about your origin, going through, the journey of you becoming a content creator, a videographer, etc., and building these studios. So you run a podcast currently. So Hacks and Hobbies. So what is your plans for the future when it comes to your personal content creation? Because I know your business plans, right? I you building studios, you're helping to promote and sell the GoBox studio. But for you personally as a content creator, what drives you and what are your plans for the future? That's what I'm really interested in.
That's an amazing question, because my plans for the future is, again, to continue to teach. So currently I teach a high school podcast production at a private high school that my son goes to. And
that's
that
awesome.
basically arises because I was at this dinner party, and I was talking to one of the board members of the school, and we just started talking, and he's like, so I, being a podcaster, start asking him questions, getting really intrigued about him. And he's like, wait, you're asking me so many questions. How about you? What do you do? So I tell him, well, I'm a podcaster. It's like, what? What do you podcast about? I'm like, well, I interview entrepreneurs, and I've interviewed 400 some people so far. And this is like 2 years ago, right? So I shared this, and he's like, oh my God, would you mind coming and teaching entrepreneurship at the school? So that's how the connection was made. So last year I taught entrepreneurship. This year I'm teaching podcast production. And next semester we're actually going to be building out a physical in-person studio space, training the students how to set up cameras, how to set up the lighting, basically all the stuff that I learned in those courses 15 years ago is what I'm going to be teaching to these students in person. And the goal is to actually build a media school, a physical media school here in Virginia, so that people can come and learn how to set up and how to present on camera, how to talk to audience. So we're going to be, integrating with Toastmasters. We're going to be integrating with other podcast production companies, other people, and, helping local businesses as well.
That's awesome.
In creating their content. So that's the future that I'm looking at in the next 2 to 3 years.
I wish that I would have went to your high school and looked all that stuff when I was a kid. That is so cool. Like that gift that you're giving to young people is amazing, because like we're talking about how important it is now, like content creation, media, and user generated content is
Mm-hmm.
a buzzword, but it's huge and it's only going to get bigger,
Oh
right?
my God, yeah.
So you are giving these kids a real gift in learning all this stuff, because no matter what industry they go into, they're going to have those skills. They're going to be able to talk
Yeah.
effectively. And believe it or not, I've heard that with the younger generations, just learning how to carry on a conversation, how to socialize, how to make friends is a skill that is in decline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially
It
after the
is.
pandemic and
Yeah.
phones being everywhere now and the iPad kids growing up. Um, so that is a huge part of it. It's like, you're studying conversation, which is always important because,
Yeah.
like networking, does make the world go round, and, meeting other people, conversing with them, and then figuring out what you have in common, how you could benefit each other. That's how the world runs, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, you're giving, it's more than just, the AV skills, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the communication skills, and everything is about communication no matter what we do. Um
100%. That's how we communicate with each other, right? Human beings
yeah.
literally use language to speak with each other. And
Hmm.
what's beautiful is that every language has its own specific words. For example, if you're talking to a videographer, you have a different set of words that you're going to be using. If you're talking to
Right.
a podcaster, different set of words. If you're talking to a scientist,
Hmm.
different set of words. Doctors, like they all have their own language.
Yeah.
And the key is to jump in and understand what that language means. And that only happens when you take the step into the right direction.
Yeah. And like that's so true. Like especially even if you're in like videography, podcasting, whatever, your niche, your sub niche, it has its own jargon or
Yes.
parlance, right? Its
Yes.
own language. So
Yeah.
like definitely that's definitely true. Like even if you're a live streamer, it's like on Twitch, there's a very specific,
It's very
you
specific
know,
language. Yeah.
language that people use for things, versus like if you're a live streamer somewhere else, or
Mhm.
a non-gaming content or
Yeah.
whatever, but
Yeah.
it's all live stream, but the community is different, right? So
Absolutely.
talking about networking, um I consider you a master networker, because of like all this stuff you're able to build for yourself. Like you said, it comes from talking to people. You educate yourself, and then you talk to people and they learn about you, and then they're like, I need to work with you, right? So you've done that for the Go Box studio. Someone was like, oh, you need to talk to Junaid, because
Mhm.
you networked with them, and they were like, oh, this guy,
Yeah.
you need to connect with him. And then boom, that launched a part of your career, and then your teaching career as well.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. Just someone like finds out about you and they're like, oh, you have to teach.
Mhm.
You have to teach for us.
Exactly.
Um, and the same thing too with, building the studios. They're like, why is you know, and you do it in a way where you're not being pushy, which is very interesting, I think,
Mhm.
because you let the work speak for itself, right? You're saying, when you're on the Zoom calls and everyone's like, wait, why is your quality so good? Why is it blah blah blah? Well, actually, I make the studios. Oh my god, can you help me? I'll pay you.
Mhm.
It's like that's the really smart level of marketing that I'm trying to study and learn. So just marketing or networking. How did you get so good at networking, and what do you think people that are interested in growing in their space, especially in like video production, content creation space, how can they improve their networking and
Mhm.
get those opportunities like you've created for yourself?
Well, I've got a funny story, Ed, because I consider myself as an introvert, or for at least what that's what this strengths assessment told me 20 years ago. Like you're an introvert, right? But over time, when I started my singing, being part of a band, and 20 plus years ago, I was
Oh
still
wow,
an introvert, right? I was
I didn't even know that.
I was just hanging out with the band. I'm just there. Everybody else was talking, but I was just just hanging out, waiting for the next song to go. I didn't really know how to talk, so I had to get better at it. So some of the things that I did was involve myself into communities where I can really absorb what they're doing and then, share my knowledge based on what I know. So the different communities that I was part of, building computers, building websites, building different things, right? So when you're good at one specific thing and you talk to the people and you're on the same level, it's so much easier to communicate. So as I'm learning photography and filmmaking and joining these meetup groups from 2013 onwards, I also became a Lyft driver. And that exposed me to 500 to 1,000 different people because I'm picking them up, having a conversation in the car with
Yeah.
them. And I had to force myself to, ask questions or, if they even wanted to talk. And when you're picking up people at 2 a.m. in the morning, they do want to talk because you're just picking them up from the, from the bars to take them home. So that also helped me become a better speaker. Now, around that time, when I moved to Virginia, the job that I was working at, they had a Toastmasters meetup group every week. And I'm like, oh my God, twice a week they were meeting. I was like, I need to join this Toastmaster groups because they teach you how to actually speak in front of audience. Like, what are you actually saying? Does it make sense? What's your delivery look like? Are you intriguing them, right? So all of those things I had to go through to understand the level of speaking ability that I've now acquired over time. But that wasn't enough. I still had to involve myself in these conversations with other people, have that active listening to get good. And, the numbers that I threw out about, being able to interview 400 to 700 different people on my podcast. And my brother-in-law was telling me the other day, he's like, so you've spoken to 500 people for an hour each. That's 500 hours of you asking them questions or listening to them. So all of those things build you up, right? They say you got to have a 10,000 hour of training of doing something to get really good at it. So that's kind of my training of how I got good at it, because I listened to their stories. And as I'm listening to that story, things start making sense in my head. And when I first started in 2018 to become a podcaster, I had no idea how to tell stories. I was like, unless I have a script, I don't know how to tell a story, right? And as I'm listening to Gary Vee just saying, hey, just document your journey. Document, don't create. Because when you document, you start to walk the path and start to see the story unfold that you can then tell in a future time frame.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like I'm probably the opposite. So I'm a natural extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
So I thrive around people, and I get energy from being around people and talking, and the dynamism of that. So the thing that I found, which was really useful, is I live in the New York City area. So
Nice.
luckily, I'm lucky enough to be around a bunch of creative groups that meet and that are free.
Mm-hmm.
So I started going to a YouTuber, or it's a content creator meetup group. I went to an event from another group that's similar, and like the connections I made and the people I've met from there, that's been awesome. And then I went to this free informational an informational like meetup about Podfest, basically.
Yeah.
So I went there and I learned about it. I met these people, and I was just like thinking, like, maybe do I want to start a podcast? And I had this idea, for IRL Ventures, which you're now, listening to, watching right now. And once I got there and I started talking to people, and I realized it was a possibility, and that these people were just like me. They weren't, these professional giants or anything.
Yeah.
Most people never studied any of the stuff, audio or video production, and they just had something to share. And that, like, having other people that are doing the thing that you want to do, I think that's important to surround yourself with, right?
100%.
So it's like you are the people. It's like you are what you eat. You are the people you spend time with, right?
Exactly.
So if you want to become better at something, you should seek out those people that are good at it, or other people that are trying to get good at it, and create that community. And I think that's awesome. And honestly, like, especially coming out of the pandemic and everything, uh, the physical in-person networking, I think has been game changing for me. And I didn't think it would be that different or that important, but for me personally, I think it is. Like when you're physically in the same location, talking to people, you connect. There's like something about the energy of being in person.
Absolutely. It's the secondary things that we pick up, the secondary level of communication. Like it's not just audio anymore, right? You see the reactions, you see their actions, how they're moving, and then you build a deeper connection with the people around there. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but I started the whole podcasting journey to document my beekeeping journey. So to become a beekeeper, the last video that I watched, the guy said, hey, if you really want to become a beekeeper, you need to go join a local beekeepers association.
Is there anything you don't do today?
I was like, that's pretty cool. I guess I got to go join a beekeeping community. So I went and joined. I finished my course, and then that's after I finished is when I started my podcast, because that was something that I could document that was definitive as opposed to all the other things that I was doing. And that put a light bulb in my head, because I was surrounding myself with other beekeepers.
Yeah.
Learning the language of beekeeping.
Became part of the hive.
Yeah, became part of So that's really powerful. And again, with podcasting, I had to immerse myself with other podcasters. The Facebook groups that I was part of, the Facebook groups that I'm part of now, like all of those things, they help you because they want nothing more than encourage you. And that's what was beautiful when you join a community of photographers, of beekeepers, of podcasters, or cyclists, of NAS server builders or gamers or whatnot. They just encourage you because they want to see more of you. And then you grow in a way that you had not thought of before. So back when you think it wasn't great to meet in person, but now it's a totally different person.
Yeah,
you are a different person now to make sense by meeting in person.
No, definitely. And I see we have a comment here from Daniel Sincere. Yeah, I agree. I'm looking for more in-person groups. And actually, that's someone that I met at the one of the content creator meetup groups in New York City. So, and now he's on our live stream, and we're talking about exactly that. And it's really cool. Actually, he developed an app for tracking subways, and like it's really cool. So shout it out, Daniel Sincere. It's called, I forgot the name, but we'll put it. What's the other creator meetup group you went to? Oh, yeah, underway.nyc. Underway, yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, so that there's a bunch of different groups and stuff like that. But you got the thing is you have to find one that you fit with, right? Because there's different groups for different personalities.
Yeah.
So just see what's out there. Don't be afraid to take a chance. Like, me going to that informational session, like the thing is, it sounded like I was just going to be kind of talked at. And I was like, oh, well, I'll let me go. I'm like around this area anyway. So let me check it out. And luckily there's free food. So I was like, oh, okay, free food, can't turn that down. And then once I was actually there, I started talking to people, and I was like, okay, this is actually cooler than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then I ended up going to Podfest and it's this whole chain reaction. Like if I hadn't looked up that stuff on, I think it was meetup.com.
Meetup.com, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, if I hadn't looked up what's in my area, hadn't thought, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on this thing. It's like talking about a conference. That's weird. But then I went there and I was like, oh, this is actually awesome.
Yeah.
Making connections. And then I went to this conference where I met you, and now I have a podcast and you're on my podcast. And, it's like, and like my friend from the meetup is in the chat. So it's all this stuff. And
Yeah.
if you don't take that step and you don't take that chance, you're never going to get anywhere. So it's better to like go out and take that step into unfamiliar territory than to never take that step. Because
Yeah.
if you're holding yourself back and you're wanting to wait until there's no perfect time. You're
There's a
never going to
perfect
be
time.
good enough. You're never going to be ready enough. You just got to go and do it.
Yep.
And it's hard,
It is hard. Yeah.
but
But it gets easier when you're there because
yeah,
people are encouraging.
yeah. And so let's end today with any stories that you'd like to share. I always like to hear about people's journeys as a content creator and their stories that they went through. Um, any funny like stuff that's happened along the way, or maybe some ways that customers have used the GoBox Studio, because I'm super interested in that. Especially, this is a travel video creators podcast, so it's especially interesting, I think, for people that are able to get the GoBox Studio. They'll be able to have this portable production studio with them in a carry-on. So I'm just curious how people have used that.
So some of the ways that some of our clients are using it is whenever they're traveling, and like one of the creators, she's actually a educator. So she has these weekly classes or almost daily classes. So whenever she's traveling, she still is able to do that because she's got the studio in a box
Mhm.
sitting on a desk in her hotel room. She looks beautiful. And, all that content is pers- repurposable. You have a client that's using it in his RV, he wants to create high quality content in the RV.
Awesome.
He's on the road. Like, hey, how can I create high quality content without having to use my phone and have really solid, drops and whatnot. So that's how they're using it. We've actually used it on the back of a truck where, it's sitting on the back of a truck, video out, and now I'm having a conversation with somebody and recording that conversation with them so that we have some proof of, hey, we were over here, or, you can go out on the mountaintop and record directly on your computer. You don't have to live stream it. You're recording a really high quality content on a mountaintop on the
Yep.
GoBox Studio, strapped to the back of a car or whatever. So, many different ways. It all comes down to what's the end product that you're looking to create,
Mhm.
right? Once you have that down, then it's so much easier to make sense to, okay, to get this end product, I need all of these things and go from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's the thing with having the right tools. Sometimes, like we say, your phone can be your studio to start. But sometimes, like, once you get to that next point and you're like, okay, now I'm ready. Now I've learned on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to level up, and I know what I need. So that's the other thing too,
Yeah.
is that sometimes when you're starting your content creation journey, you think you need this thing because you've seen people use it or whatever. Or going back to talking about the Gorilla Pods back in like the 2015 to 2017 era or whatever, that was like everyone had a DSLR or mirrorless camera
Yep.
on a Gorilla Pod with a Rode Rode Yellow Micro
Mm-hmm.
on top, and
Right.
I had that. But the thing is, it's like, yes, that is great, but it's like if it's too bulky to take out and use, like how often are you actually going
Actually
to
gonna, yeah. It all
use
comes
it,
down to that.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes the phone is a better tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have to think about it. You grab it and you can go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I would say before investing a lot of money into this and that, start with what you have,
Exactly.
whatever that is. And, like if you don't have a mic like this, and this mic was like $90, which is pretty cheap for a mic, but it
Mm-hmm.
sounds good. If you have headphones with the mic in it, that's better than nothing, right? And it's
Yes.
good enough to
Yeah.
start. And then as you grow, you learn like, okay, I need this kind of thing, or because I'm in this environment and it's windy or whatever, or I'm out in public, I need, you know, the dead cat as they call it, or the windscreen
Mm.
for the mic, or I need a directional mic, or I need a lav mic, a lavalier. What you learn what you need based on like actually doing it. And
Yes.
so that's like, I can't say it enough. And everyone, like, you watch Think Media and everyone, they say you got to just press record, and that's true, but it's hard advice to take. And it's the
It
same
is.
advice when it comes to editing, because that's my biggest stopping point, is the
Mm-hmm.
editing, where I'm like, okay, I want to make it really good, but starting the editing process is like it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's a lot to do and whatever.
You need a
But
whole team, right? You need a whole team to
yeah.
be able to do a really good production. And that's what I've been really blessed with, because initially I was editing all of my own stuff.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is taking a lot of time.
Yeah.
3 hours to edit a 45-minute episode? No thanks. And then
Mhm.
that's when I decided to have a little bit of team that could help me cut that time back.
Right. And how did you learn when you needed that? Like, how did you decide, like, your time is valuable enough, or my time is too valuable to be doing this editing. I am not creating as much as I could because I'm doing all my time editing, all this stuff. Like, how did you come to that decision?
What do you
Because,
get?
to be honest, that's
Yes.
something that I'm thinking about too at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, it becomes a really glaring in your face when you get fired from a job because you're spending too much time editing your podcast, right?
Wow. I
Like,
mean,
okay,
that's a
okay.
big one. And then Daniel Sincere asks, how did you decide you had enough money to afford a team? I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking too.
Well, here's the beautiful part of where we are living right now. There's a lot of people all over the world. So my team is not in the US. That requires a higher dollar amount. My team is in Philippines. My team is in South America, where the dollar is really strong. So you can really, not only are you providing a job for somebody to support their family, but they're learning along the way. So my editor, my producer, has been with me for 6+ years. And she's like, if I didn't have this job, and you don't even think about it, like, oh my God, I'm providing a job for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if I didn't have this job, I wouldn't be able to support my family.
No.
I wouldn't be able to afford the things that we have, right? I wouldn't be able to have the savings that I have, because thank you for providing this opportunity. So again, you got to think it from that perspective. Not only are you helping get your time back, because time is something that we don't get back.
Yeah.
Right? These white hair, I can't reverse and get them black and white again. Right? This time, it doesn't come back. So the thing that you can do to take your time back is to bring in more people, because now that 24 hours becomes 48 hours, or that 24 hours
Yeah.
becomes 120 hours, because I have multiple team members working on the same project. And then you build processes and you build systems around
Yeah.
you that are going to help you get further. So there's somebody that said, if you want to get to 1 million, you got to have really good systems in place. But if you want to get to 1 billion and more, you got to have really good people in place that are then deploying these systems for you.
Right.
I'm like, wow. So that's how you get over that hump.
And did you have, like, because what I'm thinking, I'm like, everyone thinks that, like, oh, that I have this little special touch or whatever with my, and it's very personal. Like, when you're a solo creator, right, for so long, it's really personal when you're editing and you're making and crafting the story, right,
Of
or
course.
choosing what to include or not, and what sound effects, is it going to be super goofy, or am I going to
Mm-hmm.
be more serious? What sound, all this stuff. So how did you let go of that and let the editor, because I think that for me personally, and this podcast is all about being authentic. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, to tell you the truth, that's like something that I'm thinking right now, is like, if I hire an editor, because I do video editing for other people
Yeah.
too. So I'm like, if I hire an editor, like, I don't know, are they going to change, like, my tone? Like, how are they going to know what to keep and what to cut? And, like, how do you, like, detach from that a little bit?
Very easy. So you train them. You train them how you edit. And we have software like Ecamm Live, this software where you can share your screen and record. You can do Loom
Yeah.
videos. Like, hey, here's my process of how I lay out my episode. So again, when you have those processes down, then you can actually teach on that. Like, hey, this is how I like to have my episodes created. This is how I like my sound effects. So, you give them all the tools and teach them all the stuff, and then they take over and they can scale much better. Because once you have that system in place, you can
Mhm.
bring in 3 people that are then following that exact system of how to edit your stuff.
Right.
And if you look at
Right.
Opus.pro, how is that happening, right? So Opus.pro is they have all of these templates. Here's a Think Media template. Here's the Alex Hormozy template. They have all of these templates, and all they're doing is they following a pattern to then, put that stuff in place. So when you upload your video, and then you can say, hey, I want to use this template. I want to use this process. And
Right.
then they're pulling the content from your video to make sure that it matches what you want out of it. Because here's the beautiful part. What's in our heads and what I'm thinking about. Like, for example, if I made a mistake in my conversations, only I know about it. Nobody else knows about it because you think I'm an expert, right? So from that perspective, even if we make mistakes, but we fix that mistake along the way, it's the ever growing brain of ours, right? That we're displaying. I actually saw this video on Reddit the other day where Michael Jackson was doing a dance number, and then he skipped a beat where now all the backup dancers are doing a different move, and he's doing a different move.
Yeah.
So he quickly changed what he was doing, and then he got back in sync with them.
Mhm.
Now, most people would not have noticed that, but then this guy took that footage and said, hey, look, at this point, he made a mistake, but then he corrected himself.
Mhm.
That's what it's about, right? You correct that business process. You put that thing in place so that you can continue to grow, because our
Yeah.
time is very, very valuable.
Yeah. And we have in the chat from Daniel. So like any other business process, standard operating procedures. Yeah. So you train the people, show them the ropes, then have them have their agency and move forward with it.
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean that I'm learning a lot. So Opus.pro.
Opus.pro, basically Opus Clips is a platform where it'll create short form content from your long form content.
Mm-hmm.
It'll pick out the different people that are in the chat, and it'll create these short form content that you can then, publish to YouTube Shorts and TikTok and whatever have you.
Right. So it's using tools like that cut down the time. Because I started recently starting to use tools like similar to that.
Yeah.
And before, you have to put your footage into, like I use Adobe Premiere. So you do that, then you switch the canvas size to the vertical, and then you do it, and you're doing all this stuff, but and then you have to render it and export it. And when you use these other programs, they use the AI to, identify what, seems like the most clickable portion, right? The most, interesting portion of that, it could be a 4-hour video, and they'll pick out like 20 things and whatever. And they'll, sometimes it's on point. Sometimes you got to adjust a little bit, but it's way faster than
It's a lot faster than doing all by yourself. And what's cool is that Alex Hormozy puts out 250 pieces of content every week.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right. Because when you put a piece of content out there, only 5% of the people that are following you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they all like it, then Instagram like, okay, let me show it to more people.
Right.
Let me show it to more people. And that's how the virality of the video clips is what, then brings the traffic. So again, it all comes down to how much content you actually have out there, and of that content, which one is going to go viral. So if you don't have any content and you just think of, I'm going to make the perfect one ever.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be the one, well, it's not going to work, because even with Hollywood, they spend so much time marketing a movie. Like, I can't wait to go see Avengers Doomsday. They have a huge, I think there's like 20 people, 20 actors in that movie, with Robert Downey Jr. playing as Doomsday. They've been talking about the movie for about a year. right? So you got to talk about this stuff. You got to market it before it even comes out because you're then intriguing the people about it.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we've had an awesome conversation. I've learned a lot. Honestly, like
Glad.
that's why I kind of wanted to have you on because I want to learn more.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Anything else you want people to know before we wrap up for today? Anything else you want
Absolutely.
to plug?
One last thing, if you're interested into understanding, hey, how do I even get started? And we talked about it, start where you are. I wrote a book which simply tells you where you are, and you can self-assess based on equipment that you have. It's called 7 Stages of Home Studio Evolution, from beginner to broadcast pro. Basically tells you all of the different gear that you might need, that you might not have, or might think about. Because the things that I talk about is focus on what you have and work with the gear that you have. Because I can go buy at $250 running shoes, but if I don't go run in them, it's pointless. So what you want to do is use the shoes that you have to go do the reps and run, and then you're like, okay, now I deserve to get better shoes because then I can go even faster. So start with where you have. Go head on over to homestudiobook.com and you can pick up a copy there.
Awesome. And yeah, that's excellent advice. I loved having you on today. And everyone go follow Junaid at Super Junaid, SuperJunaid on all different platforms, right? Instagram, etc. You'll find them. Super Junaid. So thanks so much. Honestly, like it was a great conversation. And yeah, thanks a lot for listening and watching. And we'd really appreciate if you could rate the podcast if you're watching on a podcast platform or listening. And like the video, comment if you're watching on YouTube. Tell us something interesting and valuable that you learned. I'd love to hear about that so that I can make better podcasts for you and better episodes. But I learned a lot, I know that. And thank you so much, Junaid. Have a great day.
Thanks so
much.